Hi there again. Does it sound okay? Good. Okay, I'm Edward Wilson, and we'll be doing a condensed version of what we're doing of this talk this morning. As was mentioned, I'm a volunteer here at the museum. Very proud of that. I'm also on the Town of Erie's Historical Preservation Committee. And finally, well, I shouldn't say finally, but I'm also a 20-year Air Force veteran. And but my current job is I work up the street up Huron, across Baseline Road in Erie, where the National Archives at Denver moved. They moved up here about 2 years ago. So I work with a lot of genealogists and people who are seeking federal records. As you can see here from the screen, I tried to copy my slideshow over, but unfortunately it didn't copy over my most recent version. So I'm working with the older version. But we're going to just try today focus on the military records part. We definitely want to show you how to get your DD-214, and we'll answer other questions about military records. And of course, when I do my genealogical talk, this is the topics that we go over. And that's where we were in Lakewood, down there on 6th Avenue at the Federal Center there. A lot of people pass it on the way to Golden. They see the solar panels and the old buildings there. Well, in World War II, those buildings such as that one, Building 48 there, it was used to manufacture the ammunition, bullets for the war effort. And it's still there. And we moved up here to Broomfield, right there, new facility. I don't know the price tag. It was probably about $2 million, I would think. Great facility. We had to do it to protect the records. And since we've been open, I think we've had about 2,300 genealogists that have walked in there just for genealogy, and probably about 500 people wanting to look at records. And there's some more stuff like that there. And our hours are 8:30 to 4. So if you show up at 7:30, you're going to be sitting in your car in the parking lot for a while. Don't open the doors till 8:30. And this information is in your handout there. You know, our phone number, hours, and all that. And I'm not going to go too deeply into those records, but we are the size of a target. And most of the records you wouldn't actually be interested in. But I will mention that we do have, say, the Air Force Academy records. We do have those blueprints of the original, 1954 construction. We do have a lot of those things. And our earliest records date from New Mexico Territory from the 1840s. Of course, the Battle of Little Bighorn were held today. Hopefully it would never happen again. But if something like that happened today, maybe we could eventually receive those records. But because it happened a long time ago, those records are in Washington there. So we'll just keep on going past all that. We'll talk about census, naturalizations, border crossings, all that stuff. And Fold 3, Native American records, right there. The Indian schools that were in the area. And then come to the military service records, which is what we're talking about today. This is going back in time, so bear with me, and then I'm going to get to things that are more current in time. But in the past, of course, you've got the records of the United States that would have started with, more or less the Revolutionary War. Maybe some are prior to that. But in essence, you've got the Revolutionary War that occurred. And then you started having service records for those veterans and soldiers at that time. Now, of course, the country was very broke, poor, cash-strapped, and they couldn't necessarily pay the soldiers currency for their service. Some did, but some, like one of my ancestors, John Cates Sr., they said, hey, we have some land we're just going to claim it's over in East Tennessee, and we'd like to pay you with a bounty land warrant, which is like land in lieu of cash. He said, I'll take it. And he went over to Tennessee at about I want to say the late 1780s, and which was prior to the state of Tennessee becoming a state. And they did that. Well, and the same thing happened by the War of 1812. And actually, I think this practice went on, even I think some of the World War II veterans were paid with some land in Florida, surprisingly enough. But it wasn't that common that time. So especially like the War of 1812, a lot of these people did that. And of course, it generated records like that. Pension records, bounty land warrant records like that. So those are possibilities there. Now, let me take a look here. Yeah, I don't even have too many slides on this topic in this version. But in essence, I'm going to ask you to turn to your notes there. If you look on, let's see, is it page 3 there? Okay, so you have this information, I think, on page, let's take a look. Well, it's page 4, I believe, page 4. I'm talking about veterans. So, in fact, we've got that here. So, there's many records you could talk about. Again, just talking about pension records for veterans, bounty land warrants. Veterans that are more recent, which recent would be World War I to the present. And in fact, that's where my family history starts. My great-grandfather was in World War I. My grandfather was in World War II and Korea. My father was in the Vietnam War and through the Cold War. And I came in 1989, and I took you up to the death of bin Laden. And I have not read too many families that would have had all that from World War I to the present. And in fact, I did send off to St. Louis for my grandfather's service record. That's kind of what we're going to talk about. In the past, if you wanted your service record, you had to fill out the SF-180 form and send it off. And I guess you could still do that today. But today, they've come out with eVetRecs. And that's an acronym standing for Electronic Veterans Records. And in fact, we're going to do a little demo here in just a second on that. But in what that's saying is that if you're the veteran or any people in this category, you can do the electronic submission for those records, right? Now, you can tell little government speak is up here because they have this term. They say spouses of deceased veterans. Does that sound like the English language we use? Is that what we normally say? Mom, you're the spouse of a deceased veteran. We don't normally use that word. We usually say widow, widower, something like that. But the government language says spouses of deceased veterans. So if you and also there's a parentheses, if you have not remarried. Again, instead of saying widow, but if you have remarried, you are not eligible. You can't ask for your deceased husband's records. So if somebody's going to remarry, they need to keep that in consideration if they need that for benefits, something like that. But again, if you're the veteran, you can ask for it. If you're the spouse of the veteran, you can ask for it. If you're the widow, the widower who is not remarried, you can ask for it. And if you're the children or even the parents of the veterans, you can say, I would like to see their service record. Send me a copy, please. But so you know that, like, if you were looking for, this doesn't include your uncle. Now you may think your uncle and your aunt who served in World War II, you may think that they're your family. They are your family, but you have to fill out the SF-180 in that case. They're going to put you on the slow boat. They're going to put you at the bottom of the pile. These people, they're going to quickly try to get those records copied and sent to you, okay? And there may be potentially, not for the veteran, but like if you want your aunt or uncle's records, they may charge you for that. And they'll advise you of those charges. So let's see if we can do a quick demo here and show you what I'm talking about, because I think that's the focus of most people here. So you'll type in eVetRex. I could give you the link, but eVetRex seems to be easier to remember.
Is that on your read?
Yes, it's on page 4.
Can you also show how you access it directly from your National Archives site?
Well, that's what we're doing. We're going through it right there. So you just click on the link. It's for national. It's at archives. vetrex.archives.gov. But again, you can get there through Google. It's your choice. So when you come up here, it says the veteran request has 4 steps, and we're going to do this while we're watching. Let's continue. And this is what you do today. And it's, you see the number 1, and as you go down, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to ask you the basic questions. Are you the veteran or the next of kin of a deceased veteran? And you could say, well, you know, I'm the veteran. What is your relationship to the deceased veteran? Well, that wouldn't apply. Are you seeking information for, you know, one of these things? Probably former military service. And then you can go over here to the right side and you say continue. And then you're going to do your best to answer these questions, okay? You may not have perfect information, just do your best. What was the branch of service? You know, and I could say, for myself, I could say Air Force. What was the service component? Was I active duty, reserve, National Guard? Okay, I was active duty. Was I officer or enlisted? And that normally comes up, but I don't know, it says non-applicable. So these options are going to be toggled by your previous responses, usually. What is the most appropriate category for your request? Now again, this is your best thing. It's just for informational purposes. They're not going to question you. Do you care about genealogy? Is it personal history? Is it, let's say, let's say benefits right there. Okay? And then the last one's non-applicable. So we're going to go on down. Continue. Now we're into step 3. Obviously, there you can do your, you can put in your name. I'm not going to put in all this stuff, but we'll see what happens. You do your social security number. And as you can see, for the World War II veterans and prior, you can put in your service number right there. But again, if you have your social, that's probably enough. And then you can put the date that you left the service approximately. Like the year might be good enough if that's all you have.
Now, if you're researching for, let's say, a parent, a father, you put in his social security number.
Yes, yes. Put in their information. You know, and you may have to do some digging. You've got to do some elbow work. You can't just say, tell me what I want, and I'm not going to help you. You've got to look up this stuff. You know, it helps to get fast response. So then, as we click continue there, I'll go back if you weren't watching that. You fill in the stuff, continue. It says, what would you like? Would you like a, like the undeleted report of separation or deleted report of separation? And of course, that's a lot of these are the DD-214. If you don't know, the DD-214 is in essence, it's a one-page form that states that you were in the military, and it gives some basic information about their service. Well, they came in 1943, they came in the branch of the Army, and they came in as a medic. And they served from this time to this time, and they were discharged. Something like that. Just a quick breakdown. And that form is very important, as many of you know, that is the form you need to show to the VA and other agencies to obtain benefits that you may need. So that's really what they want. They don't want your your last performance report. That doesn't mean anything to them. They want to see that DD-214. So again, you want it deleted or undeleted? Most people want it undeleted to get all the information unedited. We'll continue there. And then it's going to ask you, well, where would you like this information sent to? What's your email? What is your information? We need to contact you. And at some point, you're going to provide probably credit card information if needed. But anyway, okay, provide the requester's first name. We can try that there. I don't know if it'll continue on. Okay, street address, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do all that. Is there a good old Erie, Colorado? Safest town in Colorado? That's what they said. I'm sure Broomfield's right up there with them. And it just gives you a little breakdown there. And it's saying we're going to mail these documents to there. Now, if you are the veteran and you have never asked for your service record, you're entitled to that, I think, for free, because it's your records. But now, if you keep submitting this request month after month, I'd like more and more free copies. They're probably going to get suspicious. So they're going to object to that at some point, probably. Anyway, if we say continue there, and I don't know if I should have done that or not, it's going to give you a signature verification page with a barcode, right? And it's going to tell you the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis, right there. And it says, I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States that the information provided is true and correct. So that is kind of a legal way of saying, I have authority to see this stuff because I am who I say I am, and if challenged in court, I'll prove it. So you're going to sign it, you're going to print this off and obviously sign it, and you have to mail it in. So your submission is electronic, but you do have to mail this signature page in to them in St. Louis. Okay?
So will they email you the information before they get that signed sheet or not?
They usually wait till they get the signed sheet. But yeah. Although results are going to vary, but if you submit this electronically, you can probably get a turnaround, some response within 3 weeks. If you are not doing this electronically, if you're sending in the SF-180 because it's not for you, it's for your uncle. Your uncle, wants to know. Your aunt wants to know what she wants to get her records. And you send it like that. Then that may take a month and a half, 2 months to really get a response on that. But again, for you, it probably will be turned around within a month. You're going to hear something in your email or something like that. Okay? Question?
So this gives you the 214, right?
If that's what you ask for.
Okay, but I mean, how is this stuff stored? In other words, if I want to go get my dad's records from World War II, they have like a file of his stuff?
It's a paper record.
And can you get that entire file, or is it just only pieces of it? Hopefully I said that right.
Well, you can get the entire file, and in fact, medical records are there too, if you need to. Now, this is what I tell people in genealogy class. I say, be careful, be a mature human being, and realize that don't ask a question you don't want to hear the answer to. If you don't want to know why your uncle was dishonorably discharged and they couldn't wait to see the backside, of him walking out the door, then don't look for this stuff. So again, you may not want to be looking through your parents' medical records, but if you do, then that's what you find out. So again, they have in St. Louis, and unfortunately my other slideshow would have showed you this. They have paper records, and they're you don't want to pay the taxes that you would have to pay to make all this electronic. This is massive, massive amounts. I mean, numerous Walmarts of information. And it's usually paper records. Okay? So what you're going to ask for, and it'll ask you, is you want the DD-214 alone? Do you want the entire file? Or do you just want us to advise you? So if you were somebody like General MacArthur, who served on active duty for 50 years, how thick do you think his file was? 50 years. It's several books worth. And so they might reply to you and say, look, hey, this is an accomplished veteran. They had 200 pages of files. We'll send you the first 10 pages for free. How much more do you want? And a lot of people, in the first 10 pages of the file, that would be all you would want or ever need. Like, I need 10 pages. I don't need to see 200-page bound volume of everything they did. But again, if you have the choice that if you say, look, they're going to contact you, there's 250 pages, I want to see every single page. Fine. The staff will make it for you, 80 cents a page. Or you can come there in person and make it for a quarter a page if you happen to be going through St. Louis. So the charges are going to vary depending on what you want. Question?
With the fire that happened, was it back in the 60s or 70s?
Well, I was going to show you that. Maybe I will, but let me take your question. I'll show you. 1973 was the fire.
Because I know, like, with some of my grandfather's service records, you can't get a hold of them. And
Right.
they sent me a markup what they think was right. And
Right. NPRC fire of 1973. Let's see if it'll come up if we get lucky here. Images. Let's do a quick thing. I know there's more questions, but here's just a quick thing. They were in an old GSA building. They knew it didn't have proper fire suppression. They were trying to get it fixed. And let's see if it'll show you. It's just a little picture, but in 1973 you had the fire, and this is the big thing that I would have told you earlier. Approximately 80% of the records for the Army personnel are between 1912 and 1916, and 75% of the Air Force personnel between 1947 and 1964, with the names alphabetically from Hubbard, I think, to Z, were destroyed. This is one of the great tragedies of American history, that these records were destroyed. And
The Navy, not free.
not really the Navy, and not much the Marine Corps. They want a different floor. This is on the top floor, and you can see the fire there. It happened over a weekend. I think Watergate was going on at that time, and the country was not focused on these issues. So, but one quick thing to wrap this up before even though the fire happened, they were obligated to recreate the DD Form 214, to make a folder and to make a quick DD 214. Even those people that got burned up, they should have been able to do that. And those veterans were able to say, I have my copies of my records. Would you be interested in them? And that unit still exists today, and they'll accept your records, copies of your records, put it in your folder for you. All right, more question? You have a question?
Well, yeah, a little bit off of his. So I'm on the part where, you're asking, for the DD-14, and then there's a box down there for comments, and is that where you put, like, maybe, you want the medical records too, or, I mean, my...
Sure.
What I'm looking for, too, is to understand, like where he was, like in Korea, and stuff
Right.
like that,
Well, let them contact you. They'll tell you what they have.
Okay.
And then, we've got the official, there's two things, the official military personnel file, and this is true for civilians too. If you have a relative that's a civilian, they have their records too. So the official file and the medical record. You can say, I'd like both of them. Please advise me of the cost. That's what I would say.
Okay. As part of my job, I often get a lot of vets who need to prove that they were in a certain place at a certain time,
Yeah.
specifically Vietnam vets.
Right.
So there's a part of your record, you don't have to get every single thing you can get, specifically for DA-20. And that's a 4-page record that shows all the schools you went to, any
Right.
medals you received, and specifically it shows, especially for in-country guys, where they were, what operations they were on. The Marine Corps is more thorough than the Army with that stuff,
Right.
but there is records, and you can just ask for that.
Right. That's a good point that you made, and I should have brought the A20. I've seen my own.
But is that,
Yeah.
Frank, is that only for Army?
It's mostly for Army, and I believe for Air Force. The Navy, I would have to get back to you on what they call theirs.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same.
So that's going to tell you, well, we did 6 months in the Philippines, followed by a year in Vietnam, and then 2 months in Japan, and then you return stateside. It's going to break that down in the medals as well, and that'll be beneficial to seeking benefits, and just for your personal knowledge.
Can you actually ask for that as part of this electronic thing? It
Yeah.
would seem to be within
Right.
various options where you could enter something else.
Yeah, you
You,
can.
you probably could put that in the comments of what you're looking for.
Genealogy transfer.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll back up here,
There's no one showing.
but let's see if it'll go there. So you can do that. But again, they're going to contact you and ask you what you want and get you what you want on that. So, is there any more questions, or not sure what I should say at this point? Question?
Yeah, back to this SF Form 180. It says mail in the form.
Right.
Where's the form? Can you download it?
Yeah, that's on the same website there.
And then what's the
uh-huh.
official mailing address? Is it St. Louis?
Yes, that St. Louis address there.
Yeah, okay.
And it's easily found there. One Archives Drive there. And it's the NPRC, so that's the National Personnel Records Center. It's military and federal civilians. Obviously, if you work for the state government, you're not going to have a file there. But if you're federal, civilian or military, you're going to have those files there, and it's in St. Louis.
Is that one address for any branch request, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, it's all the same. And these are probably the hardest working people in the National Archives. I mean, because they're continually doing this day after day. There's 3,000 employees total. I'm not sure how many in St. Louis. Question?
Well, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment, that I was trying to find out about my grandfather in World War I. His records were lost.
All right.
Now, what they were able to do was, they sent me his enlistment and his discharge papers based on, they used the payment records and the data. So they had that, so then they could
Yeah.
kind of piece them all back together.
Yeah.
And so, that just for me, it was, a lot of questions that I don't know how to answer.
Yeah. Well, in complicated situations like that, you can see the phone number there. And it might be better to call them on the phone and talk to them about it. Or, not on this page, but send them an email with your detailed questions. Now, one more quick thing I should mention is, say you had a veteran, say you had a family, there's the death of a veteran, and you immediately need burial benefits. You know, you're not going to be, 4 months is going to be, or 4 weeks is too long to wait. Well, then I would get on the phone with these people and explain them the situation. Hey, this is a special situation. We can't go through the normal process. So if you need burial benefits for that reason, or some kind of medical thing, that is time sensitive, I would call them to bypass that. So because there are people that case workers that can work with your situation and advise you. Because you just sit there and say, well, I sent it off the SF-180 and I'm waiting. It's 2 months later. You know, that's you're asking for delays there. So.
But the key is you have the DD Form 214,
Yes.
which you need to apply for any of those type benefits.
Yes, that's the key.
So the key is to apply it well in advance.
Yes. So, any more questions on that?
What would be nice is,
Yeah.
you get back this information, and for me, it just leaves to a lot of other questions, like I've gotten nowhere because I don't know what to do now. Like a list of websites that would tell you kinds of information, different types.
Yeah. Archives.gov. That's what you go to. Well, you can contact us for those type of records. If you have questions, you shouldn't leave here today without getting my phone number or my email address. Now, actually, it is on the handout there. Is it on the top, the bottom, somewhere? It's on the top, right. So you can definitely contact me if you have things. Now, we do have multiple workshops that we do. As you could see, I tend to do Intro to Genealogy. And with that slides that I'm doing, I usually have about 12 military slides that we go over with. But that's a part of genealogy. It's not all about the military records. We do have a military records workshop. Now, if you like Facebook, and if you have Facebook, you can friend us on Facebook, and then you can be advised of all of our workshops that are coming out. So we have Intro to Genealogy. We have military records. Okay, we've got several more type of workshops as well. But in essence, that's what you want to see. So you can come see Archivist Cody White give 2 hours of military records till it's coming out your ears. And you can also go on a tour of the facility and see what we have there. But Cody's also a Navy veteran, and he can, he's already went through this process as well, and he can advise you of that too.
And he's on Huron, where you are?
Yes, he's there too. So, and he's a more recent veteran. And so this is kind of his entire specialty area, whereas I touch on it and I'm aware of it, and I do help people get their DD-214s, but it's what he's specializing in right now.
Hey, Ed,
Yes.
where you guys are located, everybody thinks you're on Huron. Huron's actually a little bit ways down on Highway 7. So if you guys do go there, I was out there for hours looking for this place and couldn't find it.
Yes.
Well, it's actually just to you go up Huron and you turn right, then it's behind the Children's Hospital.
Right.
So,
But if you know where the Children's Hospital is, great point.
yeah.
It is behind the Children's Hospital. If you've seen the map of Broomfield, the Broomfield County, there's a little crab arm sticking out of Broomfield. And we're right on the edge of that crab arm, you know what I mean? So as you're saying, Huron goes up and it tees off at Baseline Road. The Children's Hospital would be to your right. So you go there, and the next road down seems like it's turning off into an empty cornfield where there's nothing there right now. And there's no sign right there. I think the city of Broomfield, eventually we will get a sign that says National Archives this way. But right now, Huron just breaks apart there and goes up. So we're behind the Children's Hospital. Okay?
If you're looking for directions, don't use map questions.
No,
One
don't
day,
use Google.
It may be.
maybe use Google.
Yeah.
Google knows about it.
If you haven't taken the tour of the place, it's really worthwhile going
Yeah,
out there.
no, I was
Just to do that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Why would Broomfield want a non-tax-paying facility like
I don't know. We're just a drag on the economy, I guess.
They'll probably get a tax break.
I've been holding back on my government.
Just give us
Yes.
On the basic National Archives website, which many of us first go to.
That's a great point. Let me see if I can find it here.
Because there's lots of other useful connections
Yeah.
through it. You find it.
Well, there's archives.gov, and we do have free Ancestry.com and free Fold 3. Now, if you haven't heard of Fold 3, everybody's seen Ancestry's commercials, but Ancestry bought out Fold 3, and now they're under one company. But Fold 3 is the company for the military records. And I'm not sure. Okay, that's archives.com. We got to try archives.gov here. There we go. Archives.gov. And .com. And I'm having a little bit of difficulty finding it there, but while we're,
Well, can you just type in www.archives.gov?
yeah, right. Let's see if that comes up here. There we go. National Archives. If it comes back. There we go. So again, that's a good point. You can see here where it says research our records. Research our records, that's federal records at the National Archives. Not necessarily about human beings. It's about organizations, about the operation of the government. But right here is your veteran service records. So again, that's a good way to look through that stuff, and it's another way of doing what we just did, which was like eVet Recs right there. See there, request DD-214 separation document online. That's going to take you to eVet Recs. Okay, But you can also use the other links, like learning about military service records. And it describes to you the type of information there. The duty station, assignment, the awards and medals, emergency data, the 214, and it talks about medical records. So if you want medical information there, that's provided there. And they make a mention that records of people who left the service less than 62 years ago are non-archival and are under the Federal Records Center program. That's maybe not that relevant to you. But you could say, if a veteran left the service today, well, not today, but let's say last month, he can't contact St. Louis and say, where's my records? Because the service is going to hold on to your records for about a year before they turn them over to St. Louis. So the process takes a while. And then you can just go more and more into that. They're talking about Navy service records there. We can just take a quick look at that. I see some Navy hats out here today. And then it'll give you a link to click there, and it'll answer more questions, apparently, if it comes up. So, And then at the bottom there again is use eVetRex to request it, or mail or fax SF-180. Again, if they were being more helpful, that's helpful, but if they were very helpful, they would put in parentheses, hey, this is for the veteran. This is for the non-family member, They would tell you, they would break that down, because from that, you're not quite sure which one you should use. But let's click on, since we didn't look at it, the SF-180 to see what comes up there. So this is for your the people who are not in your immediate nuclear family, right? And it gives you a PDF to print out. It's a total of 3 pages. And you just send it in, and let's see if it gives you any idea. It doesn't give you any idea of how long it takes, but I'm letting you know it takes probably about 2 months before you hear anything. Order processing time right there. And they do approximately 4,000 to 5,000 requests per day. It says just for the separation document, they can get it within 10 days, about 92% of the times. If you just want that one page. But if you want the whole thing, it's going to take a little bit longer. It says 6 months, right. So again, if you show up in St. Louis, you just happen to be driving through there, then they can bring it right out to you and get it done. But emergency requests, this is kind of what I told you before. If you have an emergency request or deadline, let them know so they can advise you. A phone call is not going to hurt. You're not going to get through in 1 minute. You're like, I got 3 minutes. I'm going to call St. Louis. No, it doesn't work that way. You better set aside an hour, half hour. And 22 minutes into the call of holding, then you can actually get through. I'm just being honest.
So do they actually do walk-ins at St. Louis?
Yeah, they have
or do you have to call ahead and set some kind of a
No,
appointment?
you don't have to. No, it could be helpful. You could email them. Say, I want to be there in 2 weeks. I'm looking for my grandfather's service record. Can you have it ready? Oh, sure, we'll have it ready for you. And they'll put it on a cart and they'll wheel it out to you. And you'll see the original.
Yeah, right.
Well, if it exists, they can see the original record. You can make copies. So.
And she is, I imagine.
Yes, at the moment, I'm very proud.
Just a comment, if I could.
Quick comment?
The DD-214, when you do get it,
Yeah.
on the lower right-hand side of just about every one you'll ever get, that from National Personnel Records Center has a raised stamp. Feel it, make sure it's there. That's a certified copy. Be careful with it, put it in your safe deposit box. Sometimes you get 2 copies that are both certified. And when you need that, sometimes people will only want a certified copy. They won't accept a photocopy. So make sure that you have it. And the other thing I'd suggest is you go down to your county clerk's office here and ask them to register it so that it's on file forever. And then you don't have to do this again. It's like a watermark. No, it's
It's
an actual
embossed.
raised stamp. It's
Wow.
a raised stamp like you
It's
get on
embossed.
the will.
Here's an example of one. I think I had it on the slides, but you can see right there. Wow, look there. There's the, the all the specific details there. It's hard to read, but Japan, something about Japan. Was that VSM? Honorable discharge, and so on and so forth.
That's the DD.
Indochina and Korea, Vietnam service, right there. So
So is the DD 214 like one page? or
Yeah, that's
something?
one page right there.
That's it.
So as you were saying, they can certify it for you, and that's accepted in all courts. All, we do it. I mean, for people, we don't do this certification, but it's like $20. We can certify records. So if there's a charge, it will be minimal, but then it'll be accepted by the courts that you encounter. Look there, Long Binh, Vietnam. Right there. This guy is in the Army. He's from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, in 1968. He was right over there.
Yeah, that's what I was
I think the name is blacked out there, maybe at the top there. But this is just something, blood type and the service right there. So that's what you move forward with.
When I retired in '79, Sub-Base Parole Personnel Office gave me my original service record.
Yeah, yes.
What do they have on file at NPRC?
Well, that's a good point.
Just a question. I mean, I have the original in the safety deposit box, copies here and there.
You'd have to contact them and ask them what do they have.
I just wonder what they have.
You might ask them. They have to have something, and they have to have some kind of DD 214.
One would think, wouldn't
One would think, right?
Isn't it a multi-party form? In the olden days, they used to print, it would copy.
These aren't copies. I have the original.
I have the top copy, but I know that it had
Uh-huh.
pages under it.
Well, you might want to ask them. You might want to send off for it and see what they have. So,
Makes you kind of wonder if it might be different from what you have. Hey, as long as the check comes every month, I'm not going.
so one more question?
I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
I just found out not too long ago I have a relative on the Arizona. How, and I don't know, I have no proof that I'm a relative of his because I haven't been able to, I'm starting to work on the genealogy.
Right.
And if I go through this, how difficult would it be for me to get that info?
Well, that sounds like more of a genealogy problem there. So you want to start going through Ancestry.com. Now, in 2012, this is by laws of Congress, but by they have to wait 70 years, I think, to release the census. So in 72 years. So they released the 1940 census, and that's available free, well, for searching, at least at our facility. You can also go to the Denver Public Library main branch, 5th floor, Western History and Genealogy, and probably Lakewood Public Library and other public libraries. And you can search the 1940 census by putting in the name, and then that can, that's usually where you start. You can make connections there to that.
Free haircut to the military record search because I'm looking at once the 7 days free, then that's another thing. Is it free?
It is free to search, like I said, the Ancestry.com and the Fold 3. Haven't talked too much about the Fold 3, but again, the Fold 3 was named after, if you know the American flag, when it is folded and presented, there's 3 folds at the end, So that's why they call it Fold 3. But it has millions of military-related records. Now, I'm not saying that they're individual service records. They're not individual service records, which is what most of you would want, but they are military-related records. So they can tell you what happened in a lot of ways. It's hard to be more specific than that. But my point is, these records that you're looking for, they're still in paper form. They're not going to be scanned and put online. We're never going to have the employees for that. My lifetime will disappear, and my daughter and her children, they will be gone. And all these things will still be in paper form, okay? And that's good, because it's pretty protected that way. Only for those who need to know. You know, not a bunch of, we don't let people in there snooping around see your records, okay? That's why we want that signature page, to say you are who you say you are, and you're not fraudulent. This is for you. And if it's not your records, then they do to the protection of the information. They will blacken it out, you know, if you aren't the veteran or the family. So your personal information should be protected, and we do that. Maybe that was getting off on a tangent, but
So if you were using fold 3 for a search, what kind of search criteria would you use if you weren't searching by?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's expand that a little bit. Let's say you were wondering if you may have an ancestor. You're like, well, did they serve in the Civil War or did they not? You know, that's the kind of information you can start to find. Well, if they did serve in the Civil War, what unit were they in? Like my ancestors, were they serving under Sherman and Grant? Were they in the Western Theater of the Civil War? Did they take part in the Siege of Atlanta? So you can find out that stuff. And in fact, this isn't on fold 3, but the National Park Service has a soldiers and sailors database, which you can just put in a name and do a quick check. So I don't know if I did it there. Let's put in Civil War here.
How do you spell 3?
That's the number 3, yes. And in fact, you can see fold 3 right here, going back to fold 3. Soldiers, sailors, and Civil War. So they may have the same thing. Over 30 million Civil War, would that be records? But again, the National Park Service, and this is a link in your sheet there somewhere, the Soldiers and Sailors database. You can put in the name, and it's going to tell you what unit they were in. It's going to give you the breakdown of the unit, describing what the unit did, where they went, how many officers, how many enlisted, how many were wounded, how many died of disease. It's going to have all that breakdown for you. But here's fold 3. Now again, I probably can't get to it because it is a subscription service, but it's free at our location. But you could look at the widows' pensions and the veterans' pensions, the Confederate files, the Union files. I mean, look at this, 405 million records from other locations. There is some duplication history in fold 3 there.
So we could just pop into your place and hang out for a bunch of hours and
oh,
do
yeah.
all that stuff for free?
We have microwaves, we got refrigerators, you can bring your lunch, we got a break room, people stay all day, they do that.
So seriously, we could do that then?
Yes, yes.
One big room, just all computerized.
I know where the room is. I was just curious if there's like a time limit or...
No, till 4 o'clock every day, excluding federal holidays.
There's your time limit, 4 o'clock.
There you go.
Yeah. And this is the Soldiers Sailors database real quick. It strikes me as somewhat interesting that the National Park Service is the one that's in charge of this. But they do a lot of things that you're not aware of. But anyway, let's say you had a soldier here, and you just wanted to put in a name there. In fact, I'll put in one of my ancestors here.
And not only that, they also honor some of the home front women too, with the national parks as well.
In what sense?
Well, like the Roseate Rivers, the women that worked the warehouses and stuff, that made the supplies and stuff, the ammunition and all. National parks actually, a thing for them too as well.
Right. So here's a quick soldiers thing here. It's nice to know the government side of it, what the government is providing instead of just saying go to Ancestry. But right there is one of my ancestors right there. He was in the 8th Tennessee Infantry there, Wiley Oglesby. And he fought at what was called the Gettysburg of the West, the Battle of Franklin. He was at Nashville, and so on and so forth. He was with Sherman at Resaca. And that may not mean anything if you're not a Civil War buff. But if you are, you know, Resaca is a name that rings down today. Besieged Atlanta, right there. Columbia, right over there. Franklin, Nashville. And then they end up in the Carolinas over there, capturing Wilmington. They lost 2 officers and 48 enlisted men. And then, what does that say? They lost 226 enlisted men by disease for a total of 277 losses. And, but if you're going to not appreciate history or care about your family, then this never happened. Everything he did was in vain, you know, except for the country that you have today, which is what they give you. But if you care about these things, then the more you know will enrich your understanding and appreciation.
I think it's also passing on to the next generation because it will be lost.
And if you want to follow my mom's advice, which my mom would tell me that there is one in every family that cares about this information. Now there may be 2, but there's probably just one. There's at least one. But the rest of them, the rest of the siblings, they probably don't care about all this.
At this point, but their kids will.
But their kids will. So think about that when you're scanning these documents. You want to make sure that your descendants all have equal copies of this, because you can't be sure who will care and who will not care. And you may not think very much of your own research, but if your grandchildren had to duplicate your knowledge, look what they would have how long would that take your grandchildren to do this stuff? It's going to take a long time. They didn't know your grandparents like you did. They didn't even know them. So, you know, I showed a picture of a Little House on the Prairie, the TV show from the 70s, to the last thing we did. And there was a young lady there, she was about 13. I said, do you even know who these people are? You know, Michael Landon? And do you know what the show is? Never heard of it. Never heard of Little House on the Prairie. Didn't know what that was. So you have to think about that. And I wish you good luck with that. But, you know, I would say make copies for everybody. Make electronic copies. Copy all those pictures, because if they're sitting at home in your basement in a box, they're just waiting to be caught on fire and to disappear forever. Go ahead, one.
As far as looking at the National Archives and, you know, calling you or whatever, do you set up an appointment? Is that what we need to do?
You can walk in for genealogy. You don't have to make an appointment. Just walk on in anytime that you're available in the neighborhood and just go to work. We have 16 volunteers there, usually one in the morning and someone else in the afternoon, and you can tell your issues to them. And you can get one perspective in the morning, and then you can get one answer in the afternoon. One lady is it's just good, because no one person has all the answers.
Pass the book.
One lady is the past president, a volunteer of the Colorado Genealogical Society, and with like 29 years of experience. There's people have usually 10 years before they start volunteering with us. So they're really, really good at finding tough problems, you know. Adoptions, I could talk about that, but going off the topic. So ask me about this after the presentation. I think we're going to close up here. It's about 10:13. We give you 1 hour, and we'll stay around. We'll keep answering questions. Appreciate your time and attention, and thanks for coming to the Broomfield Veterans Memorial Museum.
Thanks, Ed.